Hello! In this video, we will learn how to create a reverse foot control for our human biped characters. Before we create our reverse foot controls, we need to make sure that a few things are in order. First, we need to make sure that we are in bind pose here in our character bank. Next, we need to make sure that our mesh is directly positioned on the grid. So if we go into our front view, by pressing the 2 or going here in your settings, then you can see that the mesh goes just a tiny bit into the grid here. So this gray grid line is the grid line. Another thing we need to make sure of is that our skinning is pretty well done. So if we go into skin and check, you can see that when I select any of these joints, none of the skinning from any other part of the body is being influenced by those joints. And the reason for this is that Akeytsu uses skinning to determine the position of the pivots for our reverse foot control. So if we had influence from these joints onto any of the vertices over here, then the reverse foot control would probably display and try to add those vertices as part of the control. Okay, another thing we need to make sure of is that we have this particular number of joints in our leg, and they need to be as follows: one for our knee, one for our ankle, and one at the base of our foot, or the ball of our foot here. The namings does not matter, but you do need to have them the same number of joints and sort of in the same position, one in the knee, one in the ankle, and one in the ball of your foot. Now let's go ahead and create our reverse foot. So the difference between creating an IK and reverse foot is that for creating the IK, you select the parent and then you control select the child and then you click on that button. But for creating your reverse foot, all you have to do is select the joints at the ball of your foot. And then you can go ahead and click on that button. Now we can go ahead and select our reverse foot controls, and we can change the size of this control. So I want to move them so that they are more or less in line of where I want my foot to rotate at. So pretty close to the mesh, but not too far in. Something like that. Now we can go ahead and start checking our reverse foot. If you select your reverse foot, you now see that here in the spinner we have these different icons, and this is for your reverse foot here, so X, Y, and Z, and this one in the center is for our pole vector. So if I left click on any of these rotations, you see that my control is being rotated, and you see here that these transformations here are the ones that are being manipulated. Now if I check on my reset controls, then I go back into my regular settings. Now if I right click and drag on any of these manipulations here, you can see that the reverse foot is actually being rotated. And you can see down here that these are my reverse foot channels, and this one here is for my pole vector. So now you can see that those are the ones that are being manipulated. And again, you can go in here and manipulate them by hand. or you can reset them through here. You can change your reverse foot settings by going into the settings icon in your IK menu. You can see here that I have size factor, so that will be the size of my control. And I can change my bank, twist, roll, and snap angle thresholds. So that is for when I right click and drag on my foot. So you can see here that when I roll backwards, my foot is going a little bit through my mesh here. So I can roll backwards, angle max value, change this value here. If I change it to 20 and I rotate again, you can see that now that is as far as my foot will go. And of course, for myself, for my animation purposes, I don't want it to be that restricted. So you can change all of those settings here and find out what works best for you and your character. For manipulating your reverse foot, you can see here that my control is white, which means that my IK is off. But if I select the control and move it around, the leg reacts as if it were an IK. So this is pretty cool because even though IK is off, I can work in both FK and IK. The only joint that I cannot move in FK is the last joint, the toe joint, or sometimes considered ball joint, which is the joint that we put the reverse foot on. The only way to move the toes would be to select the control and right click and drag on the spinner. And in order to turn on IK, you simply right click on the control, turning it red. So now if I select my character, you can see that my leg stays exactly where it is. If I turn it off by right clicking on it again, you can now see that the control moves with the character. And that is my reverse foot.